Welcome back to our Cryengine tutorial video set. In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about fog volume. Fog volume is important because it can really help you manipulate the way your scene looks. To find fog volume, we're going to go over into our roll-up bar over here, and on our Objects tab, we are going to go to the Entity section. Inside the Entity section, you see a bunch of different options in here, one of which is Render. Under Render, you see we have options like clouds, flashes, lightning, things like that. And these are all things that you can set up, but most of them require using the flow graph in order to trigger them at the beginning of a scene. But one of the ones that doesn't is fog volume. So I'm going to go ahead and drag a fog volume out here and place it. All right, I'm just going to place it on these rocks over here as part of this terrain. And the default size of a fog volume is very small. It's 1 by 1 by 1, so you can't really see it. So let's go ahead and change this size and see what it does. I'm going to make it 1000 by 1000 by 1000. And you can immediately see that it's created this very thick white fog. And that we are right on top of the fog. So immediately this is kind of a cool effect. You can see that the cargo ship has now been a bit hidden, and the mountains have been a bit hidden, but it's quite thick. It's quite thick, and I don't want my scene to be that thick. I want to be able to have a little bit more visibility. So I'm going to change some of the options up here. Some of the important options to note include the global density, the fall-off scale, and the HDR dynamic. These are going to be the three that most heavily affect how your fog looks. So I'm going to start by changing my fall-off scale, which is kind of like how quickly the fog dissipates on its edges. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to be 0.01. And you can see that now the fog is dissipating out. So to make this look a little bit better, I'm also going to change my global density to be 0.01. And I find that pretty small decimal numbers usually work well on these. The last thing that I can mess with is my HDR dynamic. So the HDR dynamic I'm going to change to 1. The HDR dynamic is kind of like how much light the fog will reflect and pick up. So you can see the fog when I change that setting, it's much brighter. And now I have kind of a cool effect here where I can see the rocks in the distance, but I have a pretty good view of my cargo ship. But the moon is almost all the way obscured. So I'm going to change my density just a little bit more, bring it down a little bit more, because I want to see the moon in the background as well. Now that's kind of a cool effect. I think that really enhances our scene. The last cool thing that you can do with these guys is to change the color. So if you have an interesting scene where, maybe you're on some kind of foreign planet or something like that, you can switch up your color. So I'm going to go ahead and make our fog a deep red. And you may have noticed that when we placed this fog, we were right on the top of it. So I'm going to move it up a little bit too, and you can see how that affects it too. So now we're in the middle of the fog a little bit more. And now you can see that we have a very creepy scene here. And that's about all I wanted to talk about with fog volume, so with that I'll close.